Good afternoon, church, and welcome to Sunday Online. My name is Joseph.
My name is Reg.
And it is awesome to have you with us today. You know, if this is your first time with us online, then why not head over to our Next Steps page. There's a form that you can fill out and a member of our team will be in touch.
Fantastic. Joseph, obviously this is summertime.
Yes.
One of the great British pastimes is to have strawberries and cream.
Okay.
And it made me think, what is your favourite fruit to eat?
My favourite fruit? Okay, so typically I would say mango.
I'm with you on that one.
Grapefruit. But recently I've been having a lot of melon, specifically honeydew melon. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
To each their own. To each their own. I mean, so I was going to say mango as well. And then I thought I really like lemon. I put lemon in everything. So for me, it might just be a lemon.
Swap the L and the M around and you got a good fruit.
We're going to carry on our time of service today with some worship. So why don't you stand and sing to the King of Kings.
Find me here, Lord, as you draw me near. I'm desperate for you. I'm desperate for you. I surrender. Mercy and grace unfold. I hunger and thirst. I hunger and thirst. With arms stretched wide, I know you hear my cry. Speak to me now. Speak to me now. I surrender. Oh, I surrender. I surrender. I wanna know you more. I wanna know you more. I wanna know you. I surrender. I surrender. I surrender. Jesus, breathe within. Lord, have your way. Lord, have your way in me. Like a mighty storm, stirred within my soul. Lord, have your way. Lord, have your way. Like a rushing wind.
Thank you so much, band, for leading us in that time of worship. We want to say thank you to everyone who gives into the house. We want to say that God will bless you and encourage you in every sphere of your life. There are going to be a multitude of ways in which you can give and extend God's kingdom in our area.
Awesome, awesome. You know, we have so much coming up in the life of the church, and we're going to see all of that and what it is now in church life.
Hey church, my name is Emily and welcome to Church Life. So starting on the 4th of September, we have Growth Track. So if you're new to the church and would like any more information on what it's like to serve the church, make sure you head over to our website to sign up. So on the 18th of September, we are having a child dedication service. There is also a class that takes place on the 4th of September. So if you're interested, make sure you email us at hello@londonriversidechurch.com. So starting on the 5th to the 9th of September, we are having a week of prayer and fasting. This is an amazing way to be able to connect as a church to grow closer to God spiritually whilst praying and fasting. So if you're interested, we are having services both online and in person, so we would love to see you there. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you have a fantastic week. Bye!
I've just got a quick question for you to consider. There's going to be 3 pictures coming up on the screen, and I'm wondering what these 3 pictures have in common. A baby, toothpaste, and words. Just consider that for a moment. What do these 3 pictures have in common? Well, they cannot go back in once they've come out. That's what they have in common. Once a baby has come out, they're not going back, no matter how much noise they make and how much you might think, they're not going back in. Once you've squeezed that toothpaste out of the tube, even if far too much has come out and it's going to be choking you on the toothbrush, you can't get it back in the toothpaste tube. And once words have left your mouth, you cannot get them back in. There's no undo send button, no delete for all. Whatever you've said, no matter how good or bad the consequences are, you are not getting those words back inside your mouth. So today, our topic is sweet or sour. Sweet or sour. Because you see, words are not like that beloved Chinese dish of sweet and sour chicken. You can't have sweet and sour words. The words that we speak are either going to be sweet or sour. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 24 says that kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. That's the verse that we're going to be focusing in on today, about our kind words. Are the words that we are speaking sweet or sour? When we have conversations with people, how much do we really think about what we have to say? You know that age-old saying where our parents told us probably once, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I wondered today if we really spent enough time even thinking about what we have to say to even work out, is it nice or not? Is it kind or not? Last week, my husband Tolu and I, we got back from North Macedonia. We were there on holiday. Lots of people don't even know what North Macedonia is, let alone have been there. So it was a privilege to go there. We went on so many excursions. We even got to visit Albania for a day, which was pretty cool. So when we got there, we didn't really realize how often we were going to see the same people. So day one, we get there and we get to go to this kind of information meeting about the different excursions that we could go on during our trip. And we were waiting for this minibus about 15 minutes outside of our hotel. So we kind of had some little conversations with people, trying to ask them, icebreaker conversations. What do they do? Where have they been on holiday before? All these different things. But we didn't really think we're ever going to see them again. So we didn't actually think to ask, what is your name? So there we go. We've learnt our lesson on that one, because we then saw them the next day on this excursion. Then we saw them around the hotel. We saw them again the next day. And sometimes you have conversations with people But then in the evening, you kind of like debrief about the day and you say, oh, I was talking to this person. And we realized that we didn't know what these people's names were. So we had to try and come up with these different ways of describing who we were referring to. And unfortunately, some of the ways that we were describing them were not that great, Like there was this one lady, she kept on complaining about the food. Now, I must admit, the hotel we were staying in had very average food. And I will just get that out there, it was very average. So it's okay, to comment on it's a bit average. But it kept on coming up in conversation about the food this, the food that. So when we spoke about her, we kind of said, oh, the lady that complained about the food. That's how we knew her. And then there was this other lady, and no matter what you were talking about, she kept on wanting to show off about something. Like we told her this random story about our hotel, and she said, well, my hotel. I was like, oh dear. So then we started to get to know her as like the lady that was a bit boastful, a bit showy-offy about all of her experiences. And then it made me wonder, how are people remembering us? We've got these ways of describing people based on their words and how they were speaking. And how have people gone away remembering us? Have they gone away thinking, oh, they were speaking really sweetly? Or have they gone away with a bit of a sour taste about us in their heart? One thing for me is that choosing what we say is a bit like a tug of war in our mind. It's a bit like that on one side, you've got all of these good things that we could choose to say. And it's like pulling our soul one way, saying, come on, say some sweet things, say some good things, say some kind and wise, gentle, encouraging, honest, building up words to the people that we're speaking to. But then on the other side of the tug of war, you've got kind of this other negative force that's pulling you to say these not so kind things. Perhaps it's trying to make us speak a bit more sourly than sweetly, saying some bad words, unkind, foolish, demoralizing, harsh, some lies, some words that are tearing down. In every conversation that we have this tug of war that's going on in our minds. Do we say something right now that is sweet, or do we say something that is sour? Do we say something that has the potential to help this person to leave the conversation better than they came in? Or are we kind of tearing the person down, whether that's on purpose or not? Every word that we say carries some significance. Even the mundane conversations that we have day to day, they actually carry significance. Even whether it's a small conversation about asking someone how their day was, or speaking to someone just to encourage them about a small thing that they've done. These can all be things which people carry with them into their week, or even into their year, into the rest of their life. Whether it's for the good or for the bad, people remember what we say, and our words carry weight. Our words are significant. In Luke chapter 6, verse 45, it says this: a good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart, and an evil person produces evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. What you say flows from what is in your heart. The context of this verse is actually Jesus speaking about the fruit that comes off of trees. So Jesus is saying that, when you see an apple tree, it's an apple tree because of the fruit that you see on the tree. It helps you to identify the tree. Just like when people speak to you and they see you and they listen to you, they work out what kind of stuff is going on in your heart by what is coming out of your mouth. I wonder what we're reflecting out of our mouth that's going on inside of our heart in the day-to-day conversations that we are having. The book of Proverbs actually has a lot to say about words, and there's going to be a few verses that we can read together now. One of them says, "It is foolish to belittle one's neighbor. A sensible person keeps quiet. A gentle answer quiets anger, but a harsh one stirs it up. Spouting off before listening to the facts is both shameful and foolish. Wise words satisfy like a good meal. The right words bring satisfaction. The tongue can bring death or life. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences. Fire goes out without wood, and quarrels disappear when gossip stops." These verses, so simple, but so profound. How much better would our world be if we just didn't talk so much, if we gave a few more gentle answers, if we listened a bit more before talking, if we spoke a bit more wisely, and if we chose not to gossip? how much better would our world be? So today, sweet or sour, we're going to be looking at the ABCs of speaking sweetly. Now, we're never going to be perfect in the area of speaking. We're always going to make mistakes. In fact, in James chapter 3, verse 2, it says, "Indeed, we all make many mistakes, but if we could control our tongues, we'd be perfect and could also control ourselves in every other way." So I think James realized that always speaking sweetly is going to be very difficult for us. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to speak sweetly whenever we can. So, the ABCs of speaking sweetly. A, let's choose to add value. Let's choose to be people that when we're in conversations, we're asking ourselves, how can we add value to this person that we are speaking to? You know, I ask myself this question in so many conversations that I'm in recently. I'm asking myself, right, how can I add value to this person right now? And do you know how many times I've just completely switched the tact that I'm going with in the conversation? How many times I've changed the topic, or how many times I've changed my tone, because I want to choose to be a person that adds value to other people. Now, I don't always manage, but it really does help me to ask myself this question in conversations. How can I be somebody that adds value to this person's life? We're reminded in Proverbs that kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul, and healthy for the body. How can we speak kind words that add value to the people that we are speaking with? Acts chapter 20, verse 35 says, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." And I think some of us listen to this and we think, oh, that's good. That means I can give all of my wisdom, give all of my good words, give all of this. Yeah, yes, we should give good words, but it doesn't mean that we should always be the one talking. Sometimes giving or adding value actually looks like listening to somebody. In the Bible, Jesus took so much time to listen to other people. You know, he knew everything about everyone he was talking to already, but he still took time, whether it was listening or asking questions so that he could listen to what other people had to say. Going round to people's homes. I was reading through some of the Gospels recently, and he went round to some of his disciples' homes when they became his disciples. He already knew enough about them to ask them to be one of his 12 followers. He didn't really need to go to their house to find out more about them, but he chose to give them time to add value to their lives. I think we should give sweet words generously and hold back sour words ferociously with everything that is in us. Sometimes it's not even just the words, it's the actions. The actions sometimes say even more than the words say. One of the restaurants that we went to in North Macedonia, you know, sometimes you go with two people to a restaurant, and normally in England, we go to a restaurant, if there's two of us, you sit on a table for two. But when you're on the excursions, they just put all the English people on one table, and it was like, oh, you're English, I'm not joking. They said, you can sit there. So we did, and we were surrounded by all these people, as I said, that we didn't know their names, so we were roughly getting to know a little bit about them. And then one of the people had actually been to that restaurant before, one of the other tourists, and he said, oh, I know the Wi-Fi password. Do you know how quickly everyone got their phone out to type in the Wi-Fi password? And I was thinking, we were just having a nice conversation, and then you've just completely forgot whatever we're saying, and you've just got your phone out to try and type in the Wi-Fi password. And I was thinking, that says so much about the value that you are placing on me, the value you're placing on this conversation. How can we show people value? How can we add value as we speak to people? James chapter 1, verse 19 says, "Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." It doesn't say that we have to always listen or never speak or never get angry. But what it does mean is that pace matters. How quickly we speak matters. How quickly we listen matters. How quickly we get angry matters. Let's give good words generously. In North Macedonia, in the hotel we were staying in, they told us, don't drink the water because it's got chlorine in it, so you could get a bit ill. So we said, that's fine. So we had this great idea that at breakfast we'd fill up our water bottles in one of the water machines because we thought, well, that sounds logical, right? No, the staff stood there basically scowling at us, not wanting us to fill up our water bottles at the water machine because they wanted us to pay for the water at the hotel later. So they weren't really that happy about us getting free water. But then in contrast to that, as you walk around North Macedonia, you see all of these churches. There are hundreds of churches. And at every single church, there is a free-flowing water fountain that anybody and everybody is able to get water from. When we have this tug of war in our minds of speaking sweetly or speaking sourly, what is flowing out of us? How freely are the sweet words flowing from us? Are we holding sweet words back even though they're available and they're right there? And sometimes we even think of nice things to say to people, but for one reason or another, they just never come out. How freely are sweet words coming out of our mouths? There are a couple of things that we can do this week if we want to remind ourselves to speak sweetly. One is that we can decide to listen more than we speak. That adds so much value to the people that you're speaking with. And number two is that you can set a reminder to encourage somebody. Every week I've got a reminder that rings on my phone saying, send an encouragement to somebody. And it reminds me to be intentional, not just to get too busy getting on with our day-to-day life, not just to wait until I'm with somebody to encourage them, but every week to sit there and think, who can I encourage today? So, to speak sweetly, to win this tug of war between speaking sweetly and speaking sourly, we can add value to the people that we're speaking to. And B, we can decide that whoever we're speaking about, that we are going to build them up. Let's build up people that we're speaking about. I realize that when we speak negatively about people in a way that tears people down, you don't just lose the secret trust of the person you're speaking about, but you actually end up losing the trust of the people that you're speaking to. You know, years ago I was learning to drive, and I remember my driving instructor always telling me these kind of negative stories about her other students. And honestly, one day I said to her, you know, I'm a bit worried about what you say about me to your other students now. And she kind of laughed and said, oh no, there's nothing bad to say, you know. I was thinking, no, seriously, because I've just heard you list all these bad stories about all these other people. What is it that you're saying about me? So when we speak negatively to people, it's not just that we're tearing down the other people we're speaking about, but we're actually ruining the trust of the people that we're actually speaking to as well. Because they're going to think that however you're talking about others is what you're willing to say about them. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 11 says, encourage one another and build one another up. Let's decide as Christians to be people that live counter-culturally, to be people that don't just want to push past people to get to the top, that are not going to be people that tear others down behind their back, but to be people that are going to intentionally choose to build others up. I've had so many times where people have messaged me or sent me cards or spoken words of affirmation to me, and that has absolutely been a highlight of my day. And sometimes if it's a message, I screenshot the message or I keep the card that they've encouraged me with, and that encourages me in the future as well. And I think if that does that for me, then surely I should be doing that for others to also encourage other people as well. Some of the things that I feel that I've done to build other people up haven't even been the times when necessarily I've been speaking about God. You know, in the Bible, there's a whole book, the book of Esther, that is written, and it shows God all throughout the book, but not once does it mention God's name. And sometimes in our conversation, we can be great at shining God's love to the people we're speaking to without actually mentioning God's name. It's times when, you know, we're going past somebody that's homeless and we wind the window down to speak to them. It's times when you walk past someone on the street that's maybe crying or evidently having a bad day, and you take the time to stop and speak with them. It's the times when you walk past someone in church that you don't know, and then you take the time just to stop and say, hi, how are you doing? And try and get to know them. Don't be like me on the excursions where I didn't know anyone's name. You never know when you're going to see that person again in the shop and have to awkwardly pretend that you know who they are, when you could have actually just taken that moment just to say hello. So let's be people that decide that we want to win this tug of war. Let's be people that decide we want to speak more sweet words than sour words. How can we build others up this week? Well, let's first of all decide that we're only going to speak words that are building up others. When we're in conversations, let's try and refrain from the gossip. It can be so difficult to get dragged into the gossipy conversations. Sometimes gossip can be quite interesting and you want to be part of it, but it's not actually building up anybody. And at the end of the day, you're tearing down trust, not just tearing down people. So let's try to be people that in our minds intentionally decide that we're only going to speak words that build others up. One thing that helps me is to hypothesize about the fact that at any given point, I could accidentally butt dial the person that I'm speaking about. And how would I feel if they heard what I was saying about them in that moment? Maybe that's a good thing that might help us today. If when you're next speaking about somebody, you just picture butt dialing them by accident, how would you feel? I bet you'd feel probably a bit ashamed if they heard what you had to say about them in that moment. And how would it make them feel if they heard what you had to say? Jesus wants us to love others how we love ourselves. Maybe we should take that in the context of our speech and speak about others how we would want to be spoken about. Let's only say about others what you would want someone to say about you. Let's love others as ourselves. Let's not let the sour side to win, no matter how tempting it is to get involved in those conversations. Let's decide that we want to be people that are going to add value when we're speaking to others. Let's decide that we want to be people that are going to build others up when we are speaking about them. How many sweet words have been coming out of our mouths recently? How many sour words have been able to slip through the gap? I wonder for you, have your words been kind? Have your words been good? Have your words been encouraging? Have what you've had to say been reflecting God's heart recently? I wonder if when you think back to some conversations you've had this week, if you kind of feel a bit upset about what it is that you said, if you feel a bit ashamed of how you responded to a situation, if you feel a bit guilty about those words that came out of your mouth that you could not take back. You know, that's what I love about emails and stuff. You can sometimes write messages and then delete them and then rewrite them and then delete them and then rewrite them again and try and work out the best way to phrase things. But day to day, people expect a response very, very quickly. You know, one person says something to you, and straight away they want you to say something back to them. And obviously, if we just kind of sat there for 5 minutes just contemplating what we're going to say next, they might get a little bit bored. So maybe there needs to be a bit of a system that we have that helps us to speak sweetly rather than sourly on a regular basis. How can we speak more sweet words? Let's remind ourselves daily of Proverbs 16, where it says that our kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy to the bones. Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy to the bones. I was thinking about this verse a lot recently and really trying to ponder on it. And maybe for you, you can think about what it is that your words are doing to people. When they walk away from your conversation, what feelings are they walking away with? I can tell you so many occasions where I've walked away wishing that I hadn't said some of the things that I said. And I can also tell you other occasions, probably more of them, where I wish that someone else hadn't said what they had said. But you know, the Bible doesn't tell us what other people should be doing. It tells us what we should be doing. The Bible doesn't tell us that we should be controlling what everyone else around us is saying. It tells us that we should control what we are saying. So we've got the ABCs of speaking sweetly. Let's add value to the people that we're speaking to. And let's build up the people that we're speaking about. And finally, C, let's censor what we are saying. Let's be people that don't just say every single thing that comes to our mind. Because that is often when we live to regret it. That is often when we make mistakes, when we fail to hold back things that we shouldn't be saying. And that's what censor means. Censor means to examine and hold back unacceptable parts of something. When you think about songs that are censored or movies that are censored, they've got parts of it that are blocked out, that are unacceptable to be seen or to be heard. And maybe for us today, we should be asking ourselves, have there been things that we've been saying or ways that we've been speaking to people that perhaps we should have censored? That perhaps we should have held back and not let them leave our mouth, because we know we can't get them back in. Once it's left our mouth, it's out there for the world. Maybe we should be people that try to better censor what it is that comes to our mind. Let's censor our thoughts before they come out of our mouth and become words. We can't control what others say, but we can control what we say. And the way that I see it is not just that it's a tug of war that we're choosing, do we speak sweet or do we speak sourly? But our soul is in the middle, and our soul has to make these decisions about which way we're going to allow ourselves to be pulled. I think that we need to have some kind of filter system that needs to help us to better censor our thoughts. Psalm 141 verse 3 says, "Set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips." Set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. What a prayer that is for us to be praying today. Maybe we can ask God to help us to better censor our words. You know, God gives us freedom of speech. He lets us say whatever it is that we choose to say, but we can ask him to help us to guard ourselves, to guard our lips. What is it that God wants us to be saying? What does he not want us to be saying? How does he want us to respond? Let's just for a moment think of a science experiment. Now, I had to do some research with my husband, the science teacher, for this one. And there's a science experiment, apparently they do in year 7, that is all about a separation technique. And it's the idea of separating water from sand. So you might have this mixture of sand and water that's all together, and somehow you need to get pure water at the end, and you just want to leave the sand behind. So what do? Well, they put a funnel, they put some filter paper, and then they pour the sandy mixture through the funnel, and gradually it filters it out. And the sand is left behind. The sand is not allowed out. It does not come through. It can't get through the gaps. And all that gets out of the bottom is the pure water. So all you're left with is the water. So it's gone from this sandy mess, this sandy mixture, to then being filtered and becoming this pure water. Maybe we can think about our words a bit like this today. Do we need to put some filter system in place so that not all of the thoughts that we have come out? So that perhaps we leave the sour thoughts behind, so that they never become sour words. So they just stay as thoughts, and they never get to come out of our mouth and cause harm or tear anybody down. What is it that could be our filter system? Well, perhaps you could pick one of these Proverbs we've been speaking about today, and whenever you feel like you're going to say something that's a bit sour, maybe you could just quote one of these Proverbs to yourself. There are other words in the Bible as well that are all about talking and the way that we speak. Psalm 19:14 says, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer." Let the meditation of my heart and the words of my mouth be acceptable to God. What a prayer that we could pray today. God, let my words be acceptable to you. Even my thoughts, before they even have to be filtered, let them be acceptable to you, so there's less to filter out as I get ready to speak. Before we even speak to anybody in the day, maybe we should get to speak to God and let God do a work in our heart. Ask him to be our filter system. Ask him what word we can use to filter out the sour from the sweet. Ephesians 4:29 says, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths." How well have you been doing at holding back those sour thoughts? How well have you been doing with these sweet ABCs? Have you been adding value to the people you've been speaking to? Have you been building up the people that you've been speaking about? And have you been censoring your thoughts before they even become words? How well have you been doing with these 3 things recently? And how could you do better in this coming week? Maybe you could think about these challenges, and you can ask yourself what you can do this week. First of all, ask yourself, is what I'm about to say sweet or sour? Simple question. But before it even leaves your mouth, ask yourself, is this what I should be saying? In this tug of war in my mind, where my soul is trying to choose between the sweet and the sour, is what I'm about to say sweet? Or is what I'm about to say sour? And how is it going to affect the person that I'm speaking to right now? And secondly, you can remember that your words are significant. Even if you feel like they're not, the words that you say carry weight. They carry value. Even in those mundane day-to-day conversations, your words are significant. And if we just remember that, I think it will help us in the way that we speak to people, in the words that we say, and in the way that we say them. Let's choose to be people this week, and in our whole life, that are people that win this war, this tug of war between speaking sweetly and speaking sourly. Let's try and picture that in our minds as we're about to have a conversation with somebody, whether it's an easy conversation, whether it's simple, or whether it's a more difficult conversation that you're about to have. Even if you have to confront someone, it's not saying that you should never confront people, but it's the way that we say it to them. It's the words that we speak. Your words are significant. They have the possibility to build up, and they have the possibility to tear down. Which one are we going to allow our words to do? How will we be people that add value? When you go into a conversation this week with somebody, even if it's a normal day-to-day conversation, ask yourself, how can I add value to this person? This week, as you find yourself in conversations about people, whatever that happens to be about, whether it's about work or family or friends, people at church, when you find yourself in conversations about people, how could you build that person up in the conversation and not let the conversation end in the direction that it started to head in, negatively or gossipy? Let's be people that add value, that build up, and finally, that censor our thoughts, that have a filter system in our minds where we're not going to let everything we say come out as words that we don't really mean, words that we might regret. Let's hold those in. And let's try and speak sweetly this week. You know, the person that always speaks good things over you is Jesus. God always speaks so sweetly. Even when he's disciplining, even when he's confronting, even when he's convicting our hearts, these are good things that he is saying to us, words that are going to help us, to push us forward, and to build us up. He always speaks words that add value to us. He always speaks words that build up. And I mean, he's perfect, so he doesn't really need to censor his thoughts because everything that comes out is good. But it's an example to us of how we should be speaking. Isaiah 43 verse 1, God says, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, and you are mine." What sweeter words could we want to hear today? That God has called us by name and that we are his. Let's take that on board, because there's nothing else that is going to add any more value to our life than that. Because when we choose to live for God, we know that we're living for somebody that speaks words of blessing over us, that speaks sweet, sweet words over us, that speaks these words over us: "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." And maybe there's some people here today that need that reminder that God has called you. That whatever's going on in your world, that when God is in your heart, your life is going to be far better off than if God was not with you. Because God is with you, and God knows you, and he loves you, and he's called you by name. Maybe there's some words that have been coming out recently that are kind of sour words that you just wish had not even come out, that you wish you hadn't said. And maybe they've come from a place where it's not been so great in your heart. You know, we read that verse earlier from Luke chapter 6, verse 45, that basically says what you say is flowing from what is in your heart. That the tree, you know, the apple tree where the apples are on, and you can tell it's an apple tree because it's got apples on it. Well, the words that you're saying, maybe they've not been so sweet. Maybe they've not been so good. And maybe that's because maybe in your heart, there's some not good stuff going on in there. And maybe you've got some conversations that you want to have with God today. The God that speaks sweetly over you, that we don't need to fear about speaking to him. We don't need to feel intimidated about speaking to him, because he knows everything there is to know about us. Fear not, because he has redeemed you. He has called you by name, and you are his. Why don't we stand up and pray together today? if you're here today while every eye is closed, and if you're online, maybe you want to pray this as well. Maybe you want to just talk to God just quietly in your heart. Maybe there's some things you want to say to him today. Maybe you just need to just stand quietly for a moment and listen to the sweet words that he has to say over you. He doesn't want you to fear about the week. He doesn't want you to fear about the future. He wants you to know that he has called you by name and that you are his. And he is singing over you today. He speaks sweet words over you today, no matter what you've done in the past, no matter what you're going to do in the future. God speaks sweetly over you. And when he sees you, his face shines down upon you. If you're here today and you want to just ask God to do some work in your heart, maybe you don't already know God, or maybe you do and you've just got a lot of bad stuff going on in your heart at the moment, and there's a lot of confusion, and there's maybe some bad stuff that you've done and some sin that you just want to say sorry to God for today, then I want to pray with you. And I also want to pray with you today. If you want to learn from Jesus how to speak more sweetly, if you want to take note of these ABCs of speaking sweetly to add value to the people that you're speaking to build up those that you're speaking about, and to censor your thoughts so that we don't say everything that comes to mind, then I want to pray with you today that you're going to have such a strong filter system, and that God is going to build strength in your filter system, and it's not going to let any more unpure thoughts come out, but that you're going to shine Jesus in all that you say. Let's pray today. Jesus, we want to thank you so much that you sing sweet words over us. We thank you so much that you know us and that you have redeemed us, you've saved us, that you know us by name, that we are yours. We thank you that you speak sweetly over us. You have not a sour word to say about us, no matter what we've done in the past, no matter what we're going to do in the future, that you know us and that you love us and that you're never going to leave us. Jesus, we thank you so much for that love today that we know that we have because of you. And Jesus, we pray that in everything we say this week, that you're going to help us to be people that shine out your love. That you're going to help us to be people that always choose to add value in the conversations that we're having. That you're going to help us to be people that build up and don't tear down. And finally, that you're going to help us to be people that censor our thoughts. Help us to be wise about the words that leave our lips. Let us take an example from you in the way that you spoke so gently, in the way that you listened even more than you spoke, in the way that every single conversation that you had with every single person that you met, you added value to their life. God, let us take on your example this week and let us be more like the people that you've called us to be. In Jesus' name, amen. Bless you, church.
Thank you, Abby, for that amazing word. What an encouragement that was. And you know, if you've said that prayer for the first time today, then we are so happy for you. There is a form that you can fill out again on our Next Steps page. If you fill out that form, a member of our team will get back to you and just help you on the next steps of your journey and with your faith.
Indeed.
Reg.
Oh, there we go.
I think that's it for this week.
Well, let's let them know about some stuff that's coming up, so where they can follow us and.
Keep up to date with us on our social media. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. Keep up to date on our website. Everything that we are up to is on there. And yeah, I think that's it. We will see you guys next week.
See you soon.
Bye.